Black and white photos archive snapshots of Mattie Jones's presence at numerous civil rights demonstrations. Most recently, it was this scene that flashed the West Louisville resident back to the 50s and 60s. Were you shocked to see what was happening at the nation's capital?
You know, as I sit there and saw that, I said, this is a good scenery of what happened the Sunday evening that we started across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They didn't have on the military uniforms, but they had on the police uniforms, and they had the hose, and they had the dogs and all that did the same thing. They didn't have to climb walls for us, but many of us was on the ground, and the men was on top of us to try to shield our bodies from being hurt. I was there when they beat John Lewis to a bloody pulp. And when I saw them climbing the walls and taking over the Capitol, my thoughts then said, look, what we have created here by allowing the institutionalized, the slick racism to keep on existing.
Was that part insulting to see that, yeah, there's some charges coming out now, but did you ever think, what if this were black people that tried to do this?
Now, that was my thought. There would be no way in the world that a black mob would have been able to do what they did. And I said right away, hey, there is some high people up there, employees, that has made this possible, because there would have been no way, if security, all of the security, had have been on their tiptoes, they wouldn't have got close to the Capitol. But majority of that mob were white.
How would you describe the state of racism in the U.S. today?
It's still racism in a more dignified, institutionalized way. You see, it was very blunt when I was coming along. White fountain, colored fountain, go to McDonald's, or go to, not McDonald's, you go to White Castle to get you some hamburgers. You go to the back door. They hand it out to you like you were a puppy dog. But now you can go in the front doors. So they've cleaned it up. The Klan doesn't wear the hood and the robe anymore. They've gotten a little education, and they put themselves in big places, police departments, sitting on the bench with a black robe on, college professors. So I would say it's the same, but more dignified, more hidden.
2020 exposed those hiding spots.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Breonna Taylor, David McAtee, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd. Hearts wrenched as the court system justified controversial killings of black men and women. Even in a recent interview, Louisville protest leader Shamika Parrish-Wright says that Brett Hankison's charges were, quote, justice for Breonna's neighbors, but not the 26-year-old aspiring first responder.
When I heard of the Breonna case, my mind said to me that we have not been on the job. We haven't did what we're supposed to have done. Because we're in the 60s and we came through the human rights movement, we got satisfied with some crumbs. And we could move out into the suburbs. And we forgot from whence we came. And this little creature began to creep back in a more dignified, sophisticated way.
But as problems resurfaced, Jones's involvement locally only grew fiercer. We discussed some of the differences that she noticed in this modern-day movement.
They didn't know any of those songs that were so meaningful, that gave us the strength that we wouldn't be doing what some of the protesters was doing. We didn't have leadership. You see, during the 60s, we were trained. Before we got into the streets or anywhere, we went to a place in Newmarket, Tennessee, and Dr. Martin Luther King's aides and men that worked, and some women, they trained us how to be resistance to violence. And they explained to us and taught us what was going to happen. We didn't go out there blindsided, thinking everything was going to be all right. See, none of this happened during this last protest that we had. But I applaud those young folk for having the goodwill and the mind and the heart to step up and said, enough is enough.
Such a powerful conversation to sit down with her, and the conversation does not stop here. We love for you to listen to more insightful dialogue about race in America. Just click on the Project Community tab on WLKY.com. And the conversation about weather has not stopped either. It's only going to get better today, Suzanne.